समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्. Okay, last time we had done verse 59, which says Vishaya Vinavartante Niraharasya Dehinaha. Now we had done, I had done this word Vishaya, and I had also said that this has got the same dhatu as Visha. Visha means poison. So Vishaya has come from poison. That means initially it may look beautiful, it may look tasty, it may look everything, but in their effects, they always leave a trace of longing, a trace of unfulfilled desire, a trace of unhappiness, and a feeling of incompleteness. So that is why it is called Vishaya. Now here it is, let's come to the next verse, which also again talks of this. He says, Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipashchitaha indriyani pramathine haranti prasabham manaha. Now, prasabham manaha, mana is mind. So he says that an purushasya vipashchita, even a wise man, he says that even a wise man, if he is constantly thinking of sense objects, his mind is violently snatched. See, pramathin, mathna, you know, mathte, dahi mathte, matha mathte, that means churning. And pra added to mathan is, pra means very hard, violently churning. That is turbulent. So it says, Indriyani pramathine harante prasabhammana. So even the mind of a wise man is violently seduced by the senses. It is snatched by the senses and the sense objects if you think of them all the time. So then we had said that they are not after you. Sense objects don't run after you. So don't say that I have them all over me, all around me are sense objects and I get tempted. No. Nobody can get tempted unless you have a desire for that particular object. And we had done this last time, that a bottle of drink, if put in front of a person who does not take alcohol, it doesn't tempt him at all. It does not have the power to tempt him. The power to tempt is in your own mind, not in the object. Think about it. Everybody doesn't run after the same objects. Everybody doesn't run after the same dress, the same piece of jewelry, the same car. No. So it depends on your longing for that particular object. Now, so we see here, look what he says. Indriyani is a plural. Indriya is singular. Indriyani is plural. So it is, see, the turbulent senses. This is the translation I'm reading. The turbulent senses, O son of Kunti, do violently carry away the mind of a wise man. So what about the foolish, as most of the people are? This is, he's talking about a wise man. What happens to the wise man? They turbulently snatch away the mind of a wise man, though he be striving to control them. Look at this. He is striving to control them, and yet his senses get controlled automatically. If the mind runs towards something, then the senses will run towards it. If the mind is controlled, the senses get controlled automatically. That is the secret of this. Now, see, as I told you that wish is poison, in Vivek Chudamani, Shankaracharya gives you an example, and that example is very, very hitting. He says that every poison can only affect you when you swallow it, right? When you eat it. But ये विषय जो होते हैं ना, the sense objects, they are a poison that kill you even by looking at them from a distance. Things attract you as you look towards them, isn't it? So eyes, vasanas come in through the eyes and the ears of a human being. You have heard about something, you get a desire to see that. So the hearing creates desires, looking creates desires, and he says that this is the poison that can kill even when you have looked at it, because you look at something and then you desire that object very, very much. You can't rest till you get it. You can't sleep, you can't eat, you don't feel interested in anything else. You just want that, and that alone. So where is it? Where does the slavery come from? Your own mind. The slavery has come from your own mind. So now he gives you a practical method how to control. Dekho, uh, any great wisdom given by any scripture is not complete unless they tell you how to achieve that wisdom. It is practical suggestions have to be given as to how one can achieve it. Supposing I give you that your cancer can be cured, but you have to get an Akasha Pushpa. Akash Pushpa means what? A flower from the sky. Now, where do you get the Akash Pushpa? That is not given. And therefore, the medicine cannot be taken. So, the Indian scriptures, Hindu scriptures, especially like the Gita, which is a practical scripture, it gives you all the techniques. First, it gives you this is what you should do, and then it gives you the technique how to do it. So this over here is how you can, the philosophy is how you can come to live with practical methodology. This what he is advising you to do. Now, as he says that even the wise man, even though he is striving to control it, falls from it. See, you have the story of Narad Muni in the Ramcharitmanas. Narad Moha, that story is called Narad Moha. That Narad ji, once Kamdev sent a lot of apsaras to dance around him and all kind of attractions. But Narad ji, being a great Muni, a great Rishi, a very, very evolved person, he did not fall for those temptations. But see, when does a man fall for temptations? When he starts boasting about his capacity to control. It is overconfidence and vanity that pulls you down. So when you start boasting about your spiritual heights, be very alert. That is the first sign that you are going to be dragged in by something or the other. You see people who will say, I have conquered anger. Nothing happens to me. You can say what you like. Anything may happen. I'll remain peaceful. The very next day, something will happen to totally throw you off balance, right? So similarly here, the story of Naradji is given that he went to Shankarji and boasted about his conquering of Kamadev, that is the god of love, the god of sensuality. So I'm not giving you the whole story in detail, just a short clip that Shivji said to him that you have told me, but don't boast in front of Vishnuji. But Naradji could not contain himself. So he went up to Vishnu Bhagwan and boasted about it. So Vishnuji, out of love for Naradji, that he may not fall in his tapasya, he said, I must pull him back. So whenever a teacher tries to pull you back, it is a little bit hurtful. You feel insulted, you feel humiliated. But that method is very powerful. So he created a big kingdom there with a very beautiful princess, and Naradji falls in love with the princess, and he goes on praying to the Lord that I could marry this princess. And then after he goes on asking the Lord that he could marry that princess, he is asked to go to the Swayamvar, and the Lord gives him the face of a monkey. And so he is only laughed at, and the princess gets very angry when she sees him. And of course, he doesn't get the princess. But Naraji is humiliated, hurt, and he curses the Lord also. All that is separate. But Naraji also understands that how the Lord has taught him a lesson, that not to go towards these sense objects. Similar is the story of Vishwamitra, the Menaka and Vishwamitra. You know, Vishwamitra was a big rishi, but he also fell. So it is a thing. Gurudev used to say this, you must remember this. Gurudev used to say that sex is the most powerful instinct, and it is a basic desire. And that is the last desire to leave a human being. It is when you go through all your tapasya, you have conquered anger, you have conquered sleep, you are an equipoised person, you are this, you are that, you are very high in meditation. But a sex drive, an attraction for the opposite sex will pull you down. It can pull you down. And that is what happens to a whole lot of sadhaks, that they come down. And also understand one thing, that the higher you are in your tapasya, the higher you are, the harder is the fall. If you jump from 2 feet, you don't get hurt. But if you jump from the fourth floor, your bones will be broken, your skull will be broken, grievous injuries, isn't it? So that is what happens when a serious sadhak, a sadhak who is very high in his tapasya, falls. So this is one. Now come to the next verse, because he is now going to give you what to do when even a wise man's senses can be snatched by force. Then what about weak people like you and me? We need some special help, certainly. So tani sarvani sanyamya yukta asita matparah vashe yasyendriyani tasya prajna pratisthita. Now he is describing a man of wisdom, right? All these verses I told you, the last 18 verses are describing the man of wisdom. They are not describing you and me. We don't fit in anywhere over here. So having restrained them all, see here also it's a plural. Yasya indriyani. Indriyani is a plural. That means he's not talking about one sense organ. He's talking about all your sense organs. So all he should sit steadfast, okay, asita matparah, intent on me, that means concentrating on me. His wisdom is steady, whose senses are under his control. See, the word used is control. It is not destroyed. If the senses give you trouble, you don't say that I'll blind my eyes and I'll cut off my ears, or I'll make my ears deaf and I'll cut off my tongue. That is not. Senses are very much needed by a human being. The senses are required for sadhana. So what is it? He uses the word control. Vashe. Vash mein karna means under your orders, under your control. That is called vash. Vashe he yasyendriyani. He says that a man who has his senses under control is the person who can be called steady in wisdom. See the word steady, prajna pratisthita. Pratisthit means established in. Pratisthit, established, sthit. So he is only steady in wisdom, not like our wisdom that keeps coming and going. Sometimes we say, "Nee, nee, hum to, we are much better than our neighbor." And the very next moment, then the Lord shows you where you are. And sometimes you wonder that your neighbor is much more wise than what you are, despite all your learning, despite all your spiritual practices. The word used is all your senses have to be under your control, not one. See, it is said that the security of a fort in the defense forces, they say that the security of a fort is as weak as the one weak brick in the fort. And if that brick can be breached, the fort is conquered. So no matter you have security guards all around, you have army stationed everywhere, but that one brick which was weak, the enemy will come right from there. Shankara in Vivek Chudamani gives again a very frightening example. Shankara's examples are a little frightening. He says that in the animal kingdom, each animal has got one weakness or the other. And when the hunter discovers that weakness, that animal is caught by that weakness. And what is it? He gives examples. Like the deer is caught with music, you know. The hunter goes into the jungle and starts playing an instrument, music, and all the deer come and sit around, and then he catches them. Fish is caught by taste. That is the fish weakness, to eat. So we all know that a bait is put into the water and the fish comes, bites it, and it gets hooked. The palate gets hooked to a hook. We know it, right? Elephant is very, very weak in his skin sense. He loves to rub his body. Wherever there is pleasure, wherever it will give the body pleasure, he loves to rub his skin and his body. So the hunters trap him with a bed of beautiful grass, nice, cool, lovely grass, which they know that the elephant will roll in it. And under that grass is a huge pit. So when the elephant comes, he falls into that pit. Like that. Firefly, you want to catch these flying insects, you light a lamp, they all come and die on that lamp, right? You've seen it many times in your own homes. You've seen it, how a strong light will attract all the insects and they all come and dash against it and die. So each one has one weakness with which it is trapped and killed. And Shankara says, what about the human being who has all the five weaknesses? Think about it. A human being is a slave to all the five senses. He is a slave to his nose, to his taste, to his hearing. He is a slave to his skin sensations. So look at our pathetic situation. It's a totally, and these New Year resolutions are all about one sense object. From today, I will not drink. New Year resolution. What happens then? You won't drink, but since you have controlled only your tongue, somebody talks about a very good whiskey and you go for it. You have heard it. Somebody shows you a beautiful bottle of wine. It's the rarest of rare. Come from some place in Italy where even the soil is very rare. You fall for it. The moment you see the bottle, your resolution is gone. So see, controlling one sense is not the answer. All the senses have to be under your control. That is why he says, see over here, having restrained them all, he should sit steadfast and intent, because even one, if it is not controlled, is enough to snatch away your mind by force. Now, this is a Western criticism, because they all believe that Freud is the father of modern psychology and whatever Freud says is God's own truth. So Freud said that the Gita is teaching suppression. And suppression is always bad for the mind. If you suppress your desires, they will come out somewhere in a very bad form. So why does the Gita teach you to suppress your senses? No. The Gita does not teach you suppression. This is about growing beyond the senses. This is about evolving above the senses. This is about growing out of childish desires. We don't need toys anymore. See, a child plays with a tin soldier, he plays with a toy car, right? When he grows up, he wants a gun, he wants a toy gun, he wants a pistol, he wants more, he wants a ball, he wants to play football, he wants to play this, that. So toys keep on changing, and the toys which he had when he was a little boy keep on falling away. So the older child keeps on passing on his toys to the younger one. So the younger one is still fascinated with those things that the older one has grown out of them. This is talking about a very evolved seeker, a man of wisdom who is not suppressing his desires but is through with all of them. Like the Americans say, been there, seen that, done that. This is what it is, that you have seen enough of objects, and for how long have they given you pleasure? We are seeking a permanent happiness, nothing less. So when we want something higher, we do not run towards the lower. We are not interested in the lower. So you grow out of them. Now, what is the way to grow out of them? The only method to grow out of a lower joy is to attach yourself to a higher. Unless you have seen a better joy, unless you have seen a higher and a more rarefied happiness, you will not give up the lower. It is impossible to give up the lower. And that is why Gurudev used to always say, he coined this phrase, attach to detach. You cannot detach. Supposing you have to get into a car, can you lift both your feet and then get into the car? No, you will fall. So what do? You first attach one foot. You lift one foot and attach it to the car, and with the help of that, you can lift the other foot off the ground and get into the car. So that is what is called attach to detach. You cannot do it ulta. You cannot do it the opposite way. You cannot detach to attach, you will fall. Mountaineer, what does he do? He first throws that hook, whatever it's called, and it goes and attaches somewhere, and there's a rope. And it is with the help of that rope, when he sees that that is firmly attached to the top, and he wants to go to the top, he lifts his body and he leaves go of the rock he was standing on. So that is attach to detach. If your attachment to the lower is very hard and strong, you will never be able to rise up, no matter how hard you try. That is also said over here. To give you an example, if you have a beautiful sports car with a very strong brake and everything, the sports cars are marvelous. So you are pressing the throttle full, pressing the accelerator full high, but your brakes are on. All your brakes are on. You will not move an inch. So what do you have to do? When you put your foot on the accelerator, the first thing you do is detach the brakes. You put the brakes down, only then your car will move. The same is with the helicopter that is hooked to a hanger. The helicopter, no matter how much the pilot tries to lift the joystick, the helicopter will not rise because it is hooked in the hanger. So then you have to do this, and then it comes simultaneously almost, it comes automatically almost, that you want the higher, you do not want the lower. And the lower you have to leave to then reach the higher. Now, psychology those days was very developed, but not as a science. This is all psychology, nothing else. But psychology, though highly developed, it was not recognized as a science. It was a byproduct of the main subject, and that main subject was the search for truth, the search for the ultimate reality, the search for the ultimate in happiness. And psychology was a byproduct because it told you how to train the mind, how to school the mind, how to get the mind into your power, that you can achieve what you wish to achieve, not that the mind is dragging you and you are helplessly being dragged behind it. Okay? So, but why is it so difficult? Because see, life after life, they say so many unis we have taken birth. We were a unicellular organism in water, an amoeba or whatever, and from there we have developed and evolved into fishes, into then amphibian creatures who were on land and water, then gradually this and this and this, all the Darwin's theory you can go. And interestingly, Darwin's theory, when you read, it is really the theory of Dashavatar. Dashavatar also has the same thing, from water. The first avatar is in water. Then it is Kurma, amphibian, right? And then it is, so then it is Vaman, then it is this, then slowly man, and slowly. So Dashavatar is the actual story of the evolution of a human being, evolution of man. So here, what is he trying to tell you? He is saying that you cannot cure the ulcers of the mind unless you have gone through this kind of discipline of birth after birth after birth after birth of evolution. It cannot be done suddenly. So a human being who has taken the first time birth of a human being from an animal, his behavior is like an animal. His likes and dislikes are like an animal. He violently snatches his food. He kills. He murders, isn't it? And you wonder, how can he even think of such a dastardly crime? Because he is at an animal level still. His mind is at an animal level. So it takes eons for a human being to evolve. And that is why the scriptures say that if you have a human birth, it is after years and years and years. Don't waste it. Don't waste it in animal passions. Rise above them and try to meditate upon going higher. And when you meditate with single pointedness, that alone can heal the wounds of the mind. That alone can satiate the hungers of the mind. The sense objects will not satiate the hungers of the mind. Hmm? So this is on this. So he says that the perfect man is he who has full वश में जिसके इंद्रियां हैं, कंट्रोल में जिसके इंद्रियां हैं, and he tames his animal nature. Now come to this next one. ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः संगस्तेषुपजायते संगात् संजायते कामः कामात् क्रोधोऽभिजायते. Next verse. क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः सम्मोहात्म स्मृतिविभ्रमः स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशो बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यते. Beautiful. These two verses are done together. These two verses perfectly, scientifically give you the ladder of the fall of man. How a man, from trying to be a very wise and evolved human being, a civilized human being, falls from his high pedestal into an animal. How does that happen? So he is very scientifically given it. And interestingly, I'll tell you, you know, Gurudev gave a speech at the Boston University in America on these two verses, which is the fall of man and how does it happen. So after he finished giving the speech, he only told us this. He said that after his speech finished, one man got up and said that, Swamiji, when did you read my paper on what anger does to a human being and what desire does to a human being? Swamiji said, I have never heard of you and I have never read your paper. So he said, but what you have listed is exactly what I have written in my paper, and that is a new research. So I can actually sue you for stealing my knowledge and giving it out as yours. So he said, it is just the opposite, my dear son. And he said, you read the Gita, which is a very, very ancient text. And these are the 8 steps that these two verses give of the fall of man. So have you copied from the Gita? And the Gita is much, much years and years, centuries before you wrote your paper. Exactly. So it is, we can only say that endorsed by psychology is this, because that man was a psychologist who had written that paper. Now, look at this fall of man. Huh? Dhyayato Vishayapunsa. I'll first list to you the eight steps that he gives in the ladder, how man falls. One is Dhyayato, number one. Number two is Sangha. Sangha. Sangha means attachment. Dhyayato means thinking. Acha. Then by these two, the next connected with this comes Kama. Kama is lust, deep desire, strong desire. Number four, that strong desire generates Krodha. Krodha is number four. Anger. Because when that desire is not fulfilled, you are angry. Even a small desire, when it's not fulfilled, you fly into a rage, isn't it? When you want to go for a movie and one person in the family is not ready and you are getting late, you have a strong desire to reach on time. Where is your anger directed? Tell me. The whole family is angry at that one person who is not yet ready to sit in the car, isn't it? So, Krodha. So, Krodha. Now, Krodha bhavati sammoha. From Krodha happens delusion, total misunderstanding of the situation. That happens because of anger. I'll explain in detail. And then from that, the next state is anger, sammoha, delusion. And delusion creates smriti vibhrama, loss of memory. Loss of memory means that you know what is memory? Memory is with reference to old knowledge, you act in the world today. You see the world today. But if that memory of the old world is not there, you even forget who you are. You don't know who you are unless you connect with the past, right? So it creates loss of memory. Then what does loss of memory do? Loss of memory creates a total destruction of buddhi. Buddhi is intellect. So you cannot think correctly after that. You cannot discriminate. That is why when a person is angry, you generally hear people saying, are you mad? Are you crazy? That means, have you lost your senses the way you are behaving? Isn't that what you say? So then, and buddhi nasha, so when the intellect is minus, then what happens? Buddhi nashat pranashyati. The human being is destroyed. Nash, nash is destruction. And pranash, when you add pra to nash, pranashyati, pra means totally destroyed, completely destroyed. This is what happens to a human being with that. Now then, let us do this. See, with dhyayato vishayan punsa, whenever you want to generate a desire in somebody, begin by making him think about that thing. Right? See, in India, there are so many arranged marriages. So when a girl has to get married to somebody, what does the rest of the family? They have decided upon some boy they want that girl to marry. So what does the whole family do? They keep telling the girl, oh, he's very good, their family is very good, this is how qualified he is, this is how handsome he is, this is how much he earns, this is his status in society. All those things are told to the girl, and the girl starts thinking dhyayato She starts thinking about it. And when she starts thinking on all the things that that boy can make her life so beautiful, she falls in love with him, or she then starts desiring him. Another example I'll give you. Look, what does the advertising world do? Advertising world has to target minds to begin thinking of the good qualities of the product it is selling, isn't it? That is why, those who are into travel industry and hotel industry, they first make brochures, right? What do those brochures do? Those brochures give you pictures of the place that they are selling. Come and stay here, this beautiful hotel. Look at the view from here. What a beautiful hotel. These are the places around where this hotel is situated. You can go here, you can go there, you can go there, isn't it? And so they totally make you think about it. So dhyate, your mind starts thinking based on that travel brochure. Your mind starts thinking, let me go to this place, isn't it? You have fallen in love with that hotel, you have fallen in love with the surroundings, you have fallen in love with that place. So dhyato vishayan punsa. So you become addicted to thinking about. See, when a man thinks of the objects, attachment arises. See, sangasteshu upajayate. Upajayate means it generates. Upajna, grow. So it is sangasteshu upajayate. Sanga is attachment. Me plus that object is happiness. You start thinking that unless I visit this place, I will not be happy. See, that is what happens to most of the tourists. Me plus that place will be happiness, and that is why they go. Otherwise, tell me, the rivers are the same everywhere. The sea is the same every beach. The mountains are the same. The cathedrals and temples are the same everywhere. But unless you give them out as something new, something special, something unique that you will see over there, a person will not go. So you have to create that attachment in the mind of that human being. So by thinking, you create attachment. This is step number 2. So once the attachment is created, attachment arises. Upajayate means arises. So when the attachment arises, what is the next step that happens? Sangat sanjayate kama. Right? So with attachment arises desire. Desire to possess, desire to go, desire anything. Jewelry. A man who wants to sell jewelry, they will show you one after the other on the television or on in a brochure, in a pamphlet, pictures of that jewelry and who some beautiful woman wearing that jewelry. So you feel that if I wear this, I will look like her. And that is the way that jewelry sells. So it generates a desire. See, sangat sanjayate kama. So what does it generate? Attachment generates lust, greed, want for that particular object. Now, what does want generate then? Kamat krodho vijayate. Kama generates krodha if you do not get it. Right? A woman who wants that diamond necklace is after her husband. Get me that, get me that, get me that. I want to wear it to that big party where so and so is coming and so and so is coming. Now, if the husband, poor fellow, cannot get it for her, the anger. You promised me. You always said you'll buy. Now you haven't bought it. And so the anger. I'm just giving the example of a diamond necklace. It may be anything. You promised, you said. And so the anger directed totally at that poor man. After that anger, what happens? Krodhat bhavati sammoha. Sammoha is delusion. See, anger. Everybody knows what happens in anger. The first thing that happens is you lose your balance. You lose the thought of whom are you talking to. Should you use these words? Should you insult that person? Should you humiliate that person? All those parameters are gone. And there is a total There is no intellect left in you. You forget that you are talking to a parent. Look at the words you are using. You forget that you are talking to somebody who is much older than you. You forget that, and you just use words helter skelter, all kind of mean, bad, horrible words to humiliate that person. That is what krodha does. It makes you lose your sense of all values. You are in delusion. You don't know who you are, and you don't know who the other person is, and you forget the relationship between the two. Okay, now then, what does delusion do? Sammohat smriti vibhramaha. I told you that you forget who you are, and you forget whom you are talking to. Later on, you feel very sorry. How could I? How could I do this? How could I? Because you have forgotten your status, and you have forgotten the status of the other human being you are talking to. It is a total delusion. So then it is a loss of memory. Smriti is memory, and vibhrama, that means you are in delusion. Smriti vibhrama, memory gone. And see, you are the product of memory. Don't forget. If you lose your memory, what happens? Then they ask you, who are you? And you say, I'm Jawaharlal Nehru, because you have lost your memory. When memory has been lost, then the individuality is destroyed, right? You do not know who you are. The girl you have married, you start thinking she's your sister. Loss of memory. Total. So crazy, totally crazy. So Smriti Bhransha Buddhinasho. Your intellect is destroyed. Your wisdom has gone. Your power of discrimination has gone. All the knowledge is gathered by the intellect alone. So when the intellect is destroyed, all knowledge of wrong or right, good or bad, value or valueless behavior, civilized or uncivilized behavior, it is all gone. Think about it. So Smriti Bhranshat Buddhinasho, and when Buddhinashat Pranashyati, the human being is destroyed if the intellect is destroyed. Tell me, what is the difference between an animal and a human being? Buddhi, isn't it? Otherwise, we are just like animals, eating, sleeping, drinking, procreating, getting disease, and dying. This is all that happens to an animal. All this happens to us with only one difference, which makes us a cultured human being. We don't call ourselves an animal. You know? And some people use this very horrible phrase that man is an intelligent animal. No, no. Man is not an intelligent animal. But intelligence makes him not an animal. He no longer has animal behavior. He has full control over his animal instincts. So man does not remain an animal. This is the only difference between man and an animal. So if the intellect is minus, man becomes worse than an animal. He does not even fall to the level of an animal. He is destroyed. He can no more call himself a human being. Gurudev used to say it is a pity that he doesn't have a tail. But he stands upright. But he is worse than an animal. So Gurudev used to say that you are Mr. Mule or you are Mr. Donkey. And from a distance, you look like a human being. But that is a mistake. You are not a human being. So that is what he used to say. So here, see, from anger comes delusion. From delusion, the loss of memory. From loss of memory, the destruction of discrimination. And from destruction of discrimination, he perishes. And that is the reason that you destroy a person's mind, you have destroyed the human being. You destroy a person's intellect, you have destroyed the human being. That is why see, those old people, poor things, sometimes they go into dementia and they don't remember anything. When they don't remember anything, then that personality, that was such a grand, intelligent, dynamic personality, that personality is destroyed, isn't it? It was totally gone because he doesn't remember anything. He doesn't remember his past, he doesn't remember his future, he doesn't remember anything. So what does a human being becomes? Less than an animal. And so the fall is very, very hard. And all this is caused by his step number one, dhyayato vishaya punsa. That is step number one. So Gurudev used to say, don't step on the first step. That is a huge practical hint for all the seekers. Do not allow your mind to slip into contemplating of pleasures given by Vishay. Vishay means sense objects. Because the more you think about them, you will not be able to rest there. As you see, one leads to the other, and that leads to the other, and that it is a chain. And one thing of the chain, link of the chain is linked to the other. That is how you form a chain. So from thinking about sense objects to total destruction can take place, even of the very wise man, that he has said in the previous verse. So be very, very careful. We are seekers on a very low rung of the ladder. We are not sthita prajna. We are not even men of wisdom. So just see how careful we have to be. And once that intellect is destroyed, your conscience is destroyed. And then once the conscience is destroyed, then you can do anything worse than an animal. This is what happens to robbers, thieves, murderers, terrorists. Conscience is destroyed, right? This is all we do today. And we take up verse 64 next time. ॐ पूर्णमद पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्तिः 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 हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ओम